Real culture lives by sympathies and admirations, not by dislikes and disdain. Under all misleading wrappings, it pounces unerringly upon the human core. The term cancel culture gets thrown around a lot. It's really a misnomer. You cannot have a culture simply based on what you disapprove of. You have to have something that you value, sympathies and admirations. That's why cancel culture, quote unquote, has to continually reach for more things to be offended by, because it has no core identity. I've used this map in previous videos to show the cultural differences in what used to be the United States of America. We are no longer a nation. If you hear anybody talking about as a nation or the future, where do you see our nation or anything like that, stop listening. Because where we go is going to depend on where you are and what culture you're a part of. This is why I have outlined the South in green. The real thing that DC is trying to destroy is Dixie culture, Southern culture. That's what it boils down to. It's the last vestige, the last vanguard of freedom in North America. Now, I'm going to show an image that I'm sure some of you are going to recognize, and it may disturb some, but it is something that everyone needs to see and understand. On the left is a character that was created in a series, HBO, Game of Thrones. Part of a group that felt that they were morally superior to everyone else and took that belief to extreme ends. Those of you who have seen the series know what I'm talking about. This is the root of cancel culture right here. Not the show itself, but the idea. There are those who believe they are morally superior. And because they have what they believe to be the moral imperative, which is something I've talked about before, they justify any action because it's morally justified. This is what the Karens believe. This is what cancel culture has its root in. Now, the reason I have it juxtaposed next to a picture of Ivanka is because one of the big things here in the South that they have a problem with in the North is the image of a human female. It just is. And this is something that they have quietly been trying to attack without seeming like they're doing it. I've used the images of girls in bikinis and people lose their minds, and either they really appreciate it or they really hate it, one way or the other. But this is the idea. Any value system they don't agree with, they believe they have the moral imperative to destroy. And that's what it's really about. It's not about race. It's not even about money, truly. It's about a value system. But I have some good news to share. And here's the good news. And this is where thought, not feeling, comes into play. Does Washington, D.C. and the North have a giant robot army that they can just flip on at a switch and send to go enforce its value system? Well, of course they don't. They have people. And people live in states. And people have the ability to think. Sometimes they don't avail themselves of that ability, but they do have the ability. There's nothing DC or these Northern culture Nazis can do without the collusion of the states. They are powerless, but they can't have you know this. They cannot have you know this. That's why you have to be in one of two camps. You have to be mentally, psychologically manipulated into what they call black or white thinking. Either I'm part of this group over here, or I'm part of that group over there. And heaven help anybody label me incorrectly. Because if I'm labeled incorrectly, then that's the worst thing that could ever happen. Now, here's some more evidence that's really going to make you think. On the right, we have 50 Cent. On the left, we have President Donald Trump. You would not think these two people would agree. Yet the man on the right endorsed the man on the left. And the man on the right has relocated now from New York culture to Houston culture. Because he appreciates the culture of Houston more than he appreciates the culture of New York. Now, if you would just fly above and say, oh, well, it's still an American. No, absolutely not. I mean, technically, I guess you could say because he resides in the Western Hemisphere, where it's North America, Central America, South America, that would make anyone here technically an American. But as you can see, there are big, giant differences, cultural differences that transcend nation. Florida has a lot more in common with Brazil than it does with Michigan. Now, so these two guys, even though their lives possibly could not be any more different, agree. In fact, the man on the right said, I don't care if this guy doesn't like people of my race. It's because of his policies on taxation that I'm going to support him. Now, some years back, these two young ladies had a bit of a tiff. Tommy Lahren on the left, Candace Owens on the right. Now they both are 100% dyed-in-the-wool supporters of President Trump. Yet they had an issue with each other. Now, any guy who's got half a brain cell knows that when two young ladies are having a tiff like this, you just basically back away slowly and stay the hell out of it and let them fix it. Or not, but just stay out of it. Now, was their difference race? No. Their difference was something over Kanye related. I'm not even really sure of the details. But the point is this. This wasn't a black-white thing. It wasn't even a political thing. It was just two people not getting along thing. But they agree on a lot more than they disagree on, I would have to say. But you see, Northern culture can't have this. Northern culture can't have this thought. And that's why they're terrified of this. This is DonaldJTrump.com. Because there's a culture that supports this man. A culture, not a state, not a race, a culture. And nothing else really matters other than culture. And this, just like it sounds, DonaldJTrump.com/desk. Now, it's a very different kind of social media. It's generally speaking one way. Here's the article talking about 50 Cent and fed up with lockdowns, high taxes. 50 Cent joins exodus from New York to mask-free Texas. Had an issue here in Florida where he threw a party in a plane hangar, and the company that was running the hangar lost their lease, but, that's just the way things go. If I could counsel one thing and beg my audience to do one thing, is to not get caught up in all wrong, all right. If you're typing comments anywhere that say, well, you said blah, 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 and because of blah, 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 that means blah, 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 therefore, blah, 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 you've lost. You're in black or white thinking. You are caught up in this idea of, because of this, then this, and if that, then this other thing. You're lost. And you're sheep at that point. Because sheep only know, get herded that way, get herded this way, or stay right where you're at. There's either in the pen, out of the pen, or grazing. I mean, that's it. And if you want to know the psychological term for this, it's called splitting. All or nothing thinking. It's a defense mechanism, and it's a sign of mental instability and adolescence. For example, let me see if I can bring this image back up. Florida Maki, you show pictures of girls wearing sexy dresses and bikinis, and I've been told that by Christians that that's a bad thing. Therefore, you can't be a Christian. Get this all the time. Don't really care. We don't shame the human body in Southern culture. It's not part of our culture to shame people for their choices. It's just not what we do. Funny thing, if you go back and read in Genesis, what really happened in the Garden of Eden when they fled from God and they hid themselves in their shame? They became self-conscious, didn't they? And they started to think of themselves in negative terms. This could as easily be the serpent on the left and Eve on the right. This is the reality. And this is why I started here. Because it's about culture. And the values of a culture that are being attacked and assailed and secretly, behind closed doors, trying to be destroyed. Why do you think they went after Splash Mountain? Why do you think they went after Zippity Doo-Dah? Why do you think they went after a certain flag that you can't show anywhere now? Try to buy one. And I know which flag, and I know you know which flag I'm talking about. Real culture lives by sympathies and admirations, not by dislikes and disdain. Under all misleading wrappings, it pounces unerringly upon the human core. You can tell a good tree by good fruit that it produces. A bad tree produces either bitter fruit or none at all. You can't tell by looking at the leaves. So I will leave it there. God bless. Have a great week. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.